Hello, you're here at noon on Guilday's Guest, my talk show here on WXSU LP Salisbury. It's a talk show where I talk pretty much with anyone and anything about anything and anyone. Right now I'm here with my guest, Nolan Gallagher, a good friend of mine. How you doing today, Nolan?
Doing pretty good, man. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. I've been really excited to have you on, really, because you and I have just some of the best conversations, I feel.
I'm glad, man. I agree.
So I'm just going to start it off real simply, real smooth. Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up on Ken Island, well, Queenstown, but technically say Ken Island.
Ken Island, yeah.
A little easier for reference.
Yeah, it's just that, it's that part where you get off the bridge and then, it's past all the gas stations and then you get over another little bridge and then you see all these nice little food restaurants. The Jetty is my favorite. I really enjoy the Jetty.
Great spot. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Red Eyes over there, too. Mostly just, dock bars, all that.
Yeah.
Hey, we got the outlets as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Maybe not much to brag about.
I mean, it's some Under Armour, and then there's Annie Annie's.
Yeah.
Which, unfortunately, Purdue does not have anymore. The Purdue Business School does not have Annie Annie's anymore, which I'm really upset about.
Really?
Yeah.
You hear something interesting. Actually, that was my first job.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
At Annie Annie's at the outlets?
In the outlets. Yeah.
That's
rolling pretzels.
I wouldn't say that's a cool job, but you get to make 5 things.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty simple type deal.
Pretzel nuggets, pretzels.
Lemonade.
Yeah, lemonade, a lot of lemonade. Oh, they got great lemonade.
They got great lemonade.
And then the pretzel dogs.
I'm sorry, Chick-fil-A gets a lot of props for their lemonade. It's nothing compared to Annie Annie's.
Oh, it's great.
If you've got a Chick-fil-A in a mall and an Annie Annie's that is farther away than a Chick-fil-A, you'll go to the Annie Annie's for their lemonade.
I'm right there with you. Their smoothies too, man. You ever had one of those?
I believe I have. I think I had the blue one.
Oh, they're great.
They are really good.
Really good.
On to the next question. What was your childhood like in Ken Island? Was it fun?
Yeah.
A lot of adventures?
I thought it was pretty great. It's definitely not the most... It's definitely a smaller town, I guess I would say. But, I think I definitely appreciated not so much of a dense population.
Mm-hmm.
It was great to be able to, grow up in a pretty nice backyard.
Yeah.
In the neighborhood, we had a bunch of kids that... Around my age, I got my 2 older brothers that are 2 years older, 3 years older. So we were playing football, soccer, everything all the time. So it's really active. And then having the water there as well. So getting out on the boat, fishing, crabbing, doing
Does your family have a boat?
No, we do not.
Right.
But pretty much everybody else that I know does. So shout out to them.
Yeah,
Thank you.
My dad talks all the time about wanting a boat. And I can't stand boats. I can't.
Really?
It's fun to go out and everything, but I don't trust any vehicle that's not going to be in the exact same spot that you left it.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with you on that one.
The only thing that is holding them there is a rope. And that rope, granted, it's wrapped around many other tiny strands of rope, but it sits out in the rain.
Yeah.
I think I've probably... left a milk bottle out in a car one time. It wasn't even in the rain. And by, the second week, it was pretty much destroyed.
Yeah.
So, I don't really have much faith in rope.
That's not bad.
For $100,000 thing.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it really depends on how... A lot of people around us have, the boat lifts.
Yeah.
So, unless you're really, going out and, docking up somewhere else, aside from home, you can really keep it up on your lift out of the water.
And then also, unlike cars, the terrain changes when you're driving them just because of the weather.
Or another boat coming by.
Another boat, someone driving in front of you, someone driving faster. And then, there's all these, right-of-ways for a big body of water. I get there's right-of-ways for a car, but there's fine lines. And then there's just a giant oil tanker that is, right in front of where you want to go.
Yeah.
And then they can't move, but also you can't move. So it's just, I don't like boats. They're not my favorite.
Don't blame me on that. Plus, you got to worry about,
Plus, you got to clean
channel
them.
markers and everything. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I clean my car, don't get me wrong, but...
Every time you
Every
go
single
somewhere.
time.
you
And
clean it.
And then, like, when you're fishing, the fish like to just hop around the boat, and they just get messed everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, moving on from my hatred of boats, what do you want to do after college?
I would say I got kind of a general sense of what I want to do, nothing really concrete. I want to get into sales, eventually into some management of some sort, potentially. Right now, kind of just trying to go with the flow and see, you know, where life kind of really takes me.
Yeah.
I don't want to set anything concrete for now. Just feel like so young, I got so much time to really figure out what exactly I want to do. And I'm kind of the type of person that I really have to be invested in something to, like, you know, truly put my all into it and go above and beyond. And
yeah, I have, you know, I'm kind of keeping that close to my chest right now. You know, what my real plans are, but I probably will do sales for about a year before I make a final decision on if I want to do this thing that I'm planning for or not.
Yeah.
But for right now, I won't be talking about that on air.
Yeah.
Just because I don't really want to let anyone know just yet. Just because I want to think it out for myself before I give anyone big high hopes or expectations of myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's kind of my same process with that.
Yeah.
Especially even like my own expectations. Like, I don't want to set something and then, you know, be working so hard to do something that I thought was great a year ago or even today, and then come 2 years down the road and I'm like, this isn't necessarily what I wanted to do, and I just invested all of this time and effort into it, which isn't really a bad thing, I feel like, but, you know.
Nah, I mean, it's always good to put effort forward.
Oh, yeah.
But moving on to my next question, do you have any heroes? And who would they be?
You know, that's a great question. Obviously, you have to go with the cliche answer.
Your mom and your dad?
Of course.
I mean, we can say that, but also I spent a very large time talking about that last show.
And that's why I was so reluctant to...
So, if you could think of more broad ones, more of, like, famous people or people whose story really inspires you.
Yeah, well, I don't know if... Yeah, I wouldn't really say a hero, but, like, it's just an inspirational story would be like Billy Strings. I know we were talking about that the other day, how kind of had a very rough childhood.
Oh, yeah. That's...
Billy's bluegrass artist.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we watched that concert for that before we went out. Yeah, that was a pretty cool story, I admit, yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, just knowing everything that he went through as a child, you know, growing up in a very, very rough home environment.
Yeah, and then, like, you know, his stepdad kind of taught him the ways of music and stuff.
And
which,
then...
you know, that was a cool story. I like that.
And then, now to coming out with an album with just him and his dad.
Yeah.
Literally called Me and My Dad. I was like, all right, it's pretty sweet, you know, just to be able to go through all those challenges. And he's been talking a lot lately, too, about how, like, he doesn't want to dwell on that anymore. And now it's all about, like, looking forward into the future, rather than, I guess, reminiscing on the past. And
yeah, I like that, though. I would have to say, for mine, is Carroll Shelby. He is in my opinion, he's the greatest car maker of all time. There is no equal in comparison to him. Maybe Gordon Murray. He created the McLaren F1, which was a car far ahead of his time. But Carroll Shelby made cars that were fast, and he made them in America. And his company, it's not around anymore, in part. They're still connected with Ford, but they don't make cars anymore. They just make Mustangs. They make the fast Mustang. That's the Shelby.
Is it, like the Shelby...
The Shelby GT 500, the GT 350, stuff like that. But basically, he grew up as a chicken farmer, pretty much, in Texas. And, you know, he had a knack for racing. I mean, his first race, he was probably 20-something after all his chickens died, and he started working as an oil hand for about a day. He went in his first race, and it was a, you know, they were low-powered and stuff like that. They probably had, like, 100 horsepower back in the day. It was probably around 1940-something. And he won it. His first race. He always had a knack for racing. And then he got graduated into the second class of racing with Jaguars that were much faster. They probably had double the horsepower of his car. And he still won that second race. And just the inspiring story. I mean, he had offers from Ferrari. He raced for Aston Martin. He was just one of the greatest racers, I think, in my opinion. And also, during the end of his racing career, he had a childhood heart problem that came back up. By the end of his career, he was racing with such heart pain that he raced with nitroglycerin tablets underneath his tongue because the pain was so bad.
Really?
So his last race, he had 2 nitroglycerin tablets underneath his tongue, and he won. He was also the first American to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans, one of the most prestigious races in the world. And then he made my favorite car of all time, the Shelby Cobra, which is just a beautiful... I'll show you pictures after the show, but it's a marvel of engineering.
Honestly, that might be, when you mentioned Shelby, that might be the car that I'm thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
I'm picturing like a cherry red.
With a big gaping maw.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
It's got a big old mouth that sucks in air. That was a crazy machine. And he had one that had 2 superchargers in 1960. And it made 800 horsepower. Nothing makes 800 horsepower in 1960. He also had a second one that he gifted to someone, and that person was Bill Cosby. But
oh God,
that was when he was America's dad, and that was no good. Luckily, Bill Cosby sold that car to a man who immediately crashed it off a cliff.
I can't really tell you what's worse there.
That one of the 2 cars that I want more than anything. There's a light flickering in the studio. It's fine, but one of the 2 cars that I want most of all is gone and destroyed at the bottom of the sea, or that it is marked with a permanent little bad spot right on there.
So, I got a question for you about that. So, was he just a racer, or did he like do engineering and everything?
He actually helped build the Ford GT40, which was the car that beat Ferrari in Le Mans in 1966. And there's this whole story about, I could go into an hour-long discussion about this story, but basically, Ford paid an insane amount of money because they wanted to win Le Mans and cement themselves in the European market as a sports car maker. And to beat Ferrari, because Ferrari didn't want to sell them to Ford, didn't want to sell themselves to Ford. But, it was just the story of all these Ford guys, these executives, putting a bunch of computers into the car and be like, this is how we're going to test it. But the computers weighed like 200 pounds. That's not the way to test a race car.
Yeah.
You can't do that. So, to get around the fact, they just taped little bits of string all along the car to see and they took pictures as the car was flying by at 100 mile an hour plus. And, they saw how the wind got to flow without the computers, and they ended up going with Shelby's design over the computer's design because of that. Just because it was more bluegrass in a way.
Yeah.
It was hardcore American steel. And, that was also one of the greatest cars of all time. Plus, he's one of the people who made the Mustang. And he's the person who basically muscle cars were built around his designs and his philosophy of, add power and lose weight.
Yeah.
That's it. So
the strings outbeat the computer on that one.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Think that has anything, any sort of, I guess, good thing for today's kind of world, you know what I mean?
Oh, I mean, like, computers now, like, they weigh, like, half a gram, and you can just put them into the car, like, behind, like, the front splitter or whatever, and it will just track everything. But, back in the day, they were trying to add so much math into it when the math was better or the car was better without the math messing up how the car was going to drive. Because you can't do testing with 200 extra pounds in your passenger seat and you're trying to race.
Yeah.
When, you're not going to have that computer in the passenger seat during the race, and also, the steering's going to be messed up. It would completely... it's not the way to test a race car.
just unrealistic.
Yeah. But, you know, I could go on and on about that story. Cars is one of my passions. little known fact, if you've ever met me. On my next question, my last question. Have you been listening to or watching anything lately?
I wouldn't really say there's anything out of the ordinary. Been mostly a lot of just the typical music, you know, they talk about. No real like podcasts or.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no movies. I'm not really that big into movies, shows, and such. Actually, I just watched for the first time National Lampoon's Vacation.
Oh
last
yeah.
Night. Yeah, literally watched that last
man.
night. Yeah, it was the first time I've seen that. Who is the
Chevy Chase.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. See, I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah.
Awful. We were talking about Sonic earlier.
Yeah.
And you were naming off all these actors and everything. I think the only one I knew was the guy from Always Sunny.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not my department necessarily.
Yeah, no. Whenever you're talking about National Lampoon's Vacation, that's Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
He's apparently a huge pain to work with.
Really?
Yeah. He was a huge mess on the Community show run by Dan Harmon, who was a co-writer for Rick and Morty.
Okay.
So yeah, no, he was apparently a huge pain.
Just like a demanding person.
Just demanding, and also just like he would try and like riff jokes that just wouldn't work, and then it was just a really kind of annoying presence to have on set. So they eventually killed him off, but it was a funny, they did a funny bit in the show, so it was all right.
At least I got something out of it. Oh, actually, I will say I did watch something recently over the weekend. Eat the Rich on Netflix. Have you seen that?
No.
It was like this little docuseries about the why can't I think of what it is? On Robin Hood, how to the moon. What GameStop. On GameStop.
Oh, yes.
And everything,
yes,
like the people that were behind all of nothing really of just like the main people who were really talking about GameStop and really got the ball rolling and everything for it. And that was actually pretty interesting to watch. It was kind of funny too.
It was a pump and dump of sorts, but not really, because it was done through a social media, which if you're doing it through there, and I've gone to their page a bunch, and how they kind of get through it is they make it legal by saying, hey, we're not financial advice, and also we're not a cohesive group. We're all independent people investing entirely in ourselves. And so really that's kind of how they, I don't want to say got away with, because they didn't do anything illegal by the broadest of terms. There was nothing wrong with what they did, really. And they did another one recently with Bed Bath & Beyond, which I tried to get it on, and then I bought some. I bought it high. Ooh. I bought it very high.
See, yeah, that's my whole thing with investing and such. I'm just not incredibly educated on that whole thing, and I feel like that would be exactly what I would do.
I've got an investment portfolio in my Excel account or my Google spreadsheets, and I've blacked out all of my purchases for Bed Bath & Beyond, because I don't want to know how bad those investments are doing. But it's all right. You don't ever put in more than you can, you're willing to lose. And I usually just invest in companies I truly believe in. So, I don't really have a problem most of the time. It's just like right now the market's down, and, that's just how it's going to have to be. And I don't really have a problem with that. I'll just buy when I have money. And, that would be the best time to buy is like now, because it'll go back up.
So what, are you just going to hang on to it for now?
Yeah, I don't really want to admit that I don't want to have to admit on my taxes that I bought that and lost. So right. I think that one might be just like, I might have to keep those shares. Honestly, a part of me just kind of wants that company to go bankrupt, so my shares just disappear, and I don't have to. I don't have to do anything about it. But it's all right. I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
But on to some announcements. Listeners, I'm sorry I missed last week's show. I had a personal thing going on. But to make up for the fact, Nolan and I and a few of our other friends in MASME, our sales group, we are going to Florida in about 3 weeks. And I have a special Guilday's Guest extravaganza planned. It's going to be a 2-hour-long show posted directly to YouTube without any of the normal. I love radio shows. However, I won't have to deal with any of the FCC guidelines when I'm doing that show. So it'll be a fun extravaganza, and there will be no holds barred, and it'll be a huge event, and I can't wait for that. You excited for that?
I am. Guilday After Dark.
We will have Jason Hobson. We will have Allie Jones. We'll have Jordan. I'm forgetting her name right now because it's not in front of me, but I'm having my friend Jordan on. I'm having... Who else is with us? Annie Rowe, who was on the previous show. So it's going to be a ton of fun, really.
Yeah, it will be. I'm very excited for that.
Yeah,
I'm excited for the trip, plus being able to get on here again.
They're taking us to Disneyland.
Oh, yeah.
Also, as we talked about in the last episode, I'm running for Mr. Zeta. It was kind of like a up in the air type of thing, but that night I signed up, and my link to the donation page for breast cancer awareness will be at the end of this video once I post it to YouTube. YouTube channel is Guilday's Guest. It's the one with the profile picture of a Kermit frowning. And he's got a cowboy hat on.
That's an awesome picture.
Thank you. I designed it myself. That's my picture.
Nice.
I should trademark that.
You should.
I won't get it, but I should. So that's kind of all my announcements for right now. I started off the donations with $25, and it's a philanthropy that really means a lot to me. Mm-hmm. I don't like breast cancer, and I don't like cancer, period. So,
get out there and donate.
Wild hot take there. Sorry, but anyways, moving on. And since I missed last week's joke, we're going to do 3 Norm Macdonald jokes of the week. Norm Macdonald's my favorite comedian, as many of you may know. First joke is, there's nothing cooler than being a lone wolf. Except maybe at the wolf picnics when you don't have a partner for the wolf wheelbarrow races.
Every time, dude, you amaze me with these jokes. Every single time.
My friend Cameron, it's a fake name, don't worry, just started making podiums. He started business making podiums. And I gotta tell you, that's a real business. That's a real product that I can stand behind.
Quite literally.
Yeah, exactly. I got a picture frame for a buddy this past weekend. It's now doing 7 years upstate for armed robbery.
Oh, God. Oh, that's great. I got one for you, too.
Okay, go for it.
You want to hear a joke about construction?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I'm still working on it.
Yeah, that's...
it's a good dad joke there.
Yeah.
Right?
I saw you reading the 102 dad jokes in the beginning bit before we got into the studio.
You don't got to call me out like that. Come on. That was original.
It was page 57.
He got me. Actually, it was 101.
I could make a 102 one just for you. But moving on to the main segment of today's episode, the story of the SR-71 Blackbird, which, in my opinion, is the coolest plane ever built. So, starting out, let's travel back in time. Past the 80s with their rockin' pants, past the 70s with their giant shoulder pads on their suits, and into the 60s, a time where there was quite a lot of things going on. I don't know if you know, we landed on the moon. We wrote a civil rights bill that was far too late. far later than we should have, by the way. Sorry. And then, but in 1960, the Cold War was sort of cold, but also rather hot, as some of you history buffs may know. USSR and the United States, the Western world, were at each other's throats 24/7. We had a U-2 spy plane, which was a high-flying aircraft that was designed to take pictures of the Soviet Union. And in 1960, one was shot down. That completely eliminated our eyes to the sky. We thought that it flew too high for any missiles or any planes to come get. We were wrong. So, the CIA, along with the president at the time, I think it was Lyndon B. Johnson, thought, hey, we need a better thing. We need something that flies higher, we need something that flies faster, and we need something that radar can't spot. So, they they went to Skunk Works. That's the, who's the big weapons company for planes? Oh, sorry, forgetting the name of them. Skunk Works. Whatever. They designed so many different things. They were actually designers of the F-35 in recent years. So, they are quite accomplished in their exploits, let's just say. They went to them and they started the development of the AX-12 and its siblings. Lockheed Martin was the name of the company. Sorry. So Lockheed Martin came up with 12 concepts for fighter stealth crafts. Just stealth crafts. They weren't fighters. And they ultimately went with the design of the A-12. And it looks just like the SR-71, except it's a bit shorter. So basically, I'll tell you some facts about it. Basically, it is the most insane plane ever. I love it so much, just for the coolness factor of it all. So keep in mind, this was designed in the 60s, and they had to acquire titanium. Titanium was the only thing that was strong enough, light enough, and could withstand the heat of going their plan, which was Mach 3+, which is 3 times the speed of sound, which is crazy fast, and also creates a lot of friction. And so titanium was the only real material that they could have made the plane out of. Now, there was a problem with acquiring titanium. Titanium was primarily produced by one country, and it wasn't the U.S., it was the USSR.
Thought it was going there.
Yeah, so they had to buy enough titanium to build the plane, build several of the plane, test them, and then also buy them in small enough amounts so that no one would clue into, the United States is building a stealth plane. So what they did was the CIA set up several shell companies to buy the titanium up from the USSR and send it back to the United States for building the planes. And that's exactly what they did.
And it was successful.
Yes. The plane has been built.
Completely undetected, no...
Yeah, no, they really didn't have any clue of what they were building.
But, yeah.
The CIA are rather good at what they do.
Yes, they are.
And even when they're not, they will convince you that they are.
Find a way to make it seem like they are.
Exactly. So, basically, the shape of the plane was designed to reduce... the shape of the stealth aircraft was designed so that it could reduce its stealth profile on radar to reduce it about 90%, so that instead of it looking like, they got it down to, 100-foot long aircraft, which is the SR-71, would appear on radar as larger than a bird but smaller than a man.
Wow.
Yeah. And a little update on how fast or how good stealth technology has come. The Russian Su-75, I think it is, which is their stealth 5th-gen fighter, which is not that good. It's faster and it's more maneuverable than ours, but also you can see that they built it with screws. So, and also there's 2 of them in service and 10 of them are in testing. And we have around 600, and we've sent probably another 200 to all of our allies. So we have one that actually works.
And can be produced.
But the SU-75 appears on stealth radar, which radar has improved as well. It appears about the size of a Cessna.
Okay.
Which is just a smaller plane. And the F-35 looks on stealth radar about as big as the thumbnail on YouTube.
Really?
Or maybe it's just the thumbnail on my thumb.
Either way, I feel like it's still probably...
It's still,
relatively the same size. Yeah.
It's just a big fly. Think about it.
Yeah, a big old bug.
I mean, don't get me wrong. If I was a radar specialist and I saw like a really big fly around that size, I would freak out. I would call in the military if I saw a big fly on my screen.
Yeah. Got a whole nother kind of thread going on there.
And moving on to the engines. The engines are insane. They produce something like, don't quote me on this, but last I read was around 80,000 horsepower. And they had to tune down a little bit as well when they were in the plane sometimes. And they had to be started with the assistance at the very beginning of 2 Buick Wildcat V8s on a start car to get them spinning fast enough to where they could propel themselves.
Get going, yeah.
And then after that, they said, okay, enough of the Buick Wildcat engines. We're going to get more technological with it. So they instead put 2 Chevy big block V8s to start it instead.
Here we go.
And then they said, all right, that's enough. That's enough. We're going to make a pneumatic system to actually start the engines.
Oh, my God.
And I'm sorry, but parts of the story like this make me think, I could probably build the SR-71 in my garage if I think about it. I mean, if they had to start it with 2 V8, I could buy 2 V8s right now.
Yeah, it sounds to me like it's just
I couldn't build one.
A lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
Hey, confidence. I guess you could.
I would need a pretty big garage.
Maybe. Well, yeah, and I guess...
just for the start car.
Considering the old Bed Bath & Beyond ordeal.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I need the...
Yeah, I don't know if we should move on to airplanes quite yet.
I can't even set up a shell company that's acquired in titanium. What am I going to do? Moving on to the fuel system. The plane took off with only partial fuel and had, in order for takeoff, just because if it wasn't going at a certain speed, they weren't sure how a full load of fuel was going to affect the aircraft and if it would kind of mess up the aerodynamics of it until it was going at a certain speed. So they had to take it off with partial fuel and fill it up midair in the 60s. I mean, lots of planes and helicopters do this now, but this was kind of a new technology at the time, where a big C-130 would take off with a bunch of fuel and then fuel it up in air.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, what time or about what year was like the Wright brothers and everything? Planes?
Fun fact. The
early 1900s, right?
The time between the Wright brothers taking off the first aircraft and us landing on the moon was only 66 years.
That is incredible.
They took off in 1903.
It's literally like exponential growth right there.
Oh, extremely.
Talk about putting the thrusters on.
Yeah. So, for the top speed orientation, the plane had to be fueled in midair. And people like to say that the plane only took off with minimum fuel because basically how the aircraft is formed, as you're going Mach 3, the aircraft has to expand because of the heat. The heat expands the aircraft about 6 inches while in flight. So all of the body panels on the plane were smaller on the ground than they were in the air. So the plane intentionally leaked fuel. But people like to say, they did it, they put the fuel low to take off just because, excuse me for a second.
I'm going to waste?
Yeah, they didn't want to waste. They didn't care about that. It was just to take off for the top fuel configuration. That was intentional. And the leaking was intentional as well. The fuel actually had to be designed by several of, BP, Shell, things like that, in order to, because it was going to leak, and they knew it was going to leak, they had to design a fuel that wasn't going to combust. And they did. And so they had a jet fuel that does not catch on fire. There are recorded stories of SR-71 pilots putting out their cigars on the leaked fuel underneath the plane.
Honestly, I still don't even think I would have that much trust, even if all these like big oil companies and everything came up with this. That takes some cojones. That takes some. That would.
Yeah, that is.
Wow.
I think I would do it once. I'd do it once.
Maybe once, but I don't know if I would do it like right underneath the plane.
Yeah.
Or the aircraft. Maybe if like we did a little test or something.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think they did a few of those, but that was basically the fuel that they had to use, and it was a really cool story reading about. The navigation system was previously developed for missiles that would fly. They would fly pretty much faster than the SR-71, but they're missiles.
Okay.
So they would, just to take a navigation system for a missile and put it into a plane is a huge feat in of itself. A missile is about the size of probably 3 feet wide or long, and the SR-71 was 100 feet long.
Yeah, I'm honestly sitting here like, what?
Yeah, the blue light sensor actually tracked the locations of the stars both day and night in order to navigate itself. Because in a standard plane, pilots would typically have to navigate through landmarks such as roads, trees, buildings. When you're flying at Mach 3, those terms of location and those landmarks get a lot broader. So instead of a road, it is
a blur.
That mountain over there, or the Snow Peak Mountain, because you are flying just so fast. And the system was apparently accurate enough to limit drift up to 1,000 feet at Mach 3 travel. Limit drift side to side.
Okay.
So
I'm not a very big plane expert here.
It's okay. So you would only have about a drift of like 1,000 feet either way. So it was astoundingly accurate
too
at the time.
And that was with the navigation system?
Yes.
That you're saying that uses the stars and...
Yeah, they had to use stars to navigate.
So how does that work? I mean, I don't know too much about space either. Not making myself look very intelligent here.
Basically, the same way that...
rotate? Wouldn't these stars move? Or I guess that's probably all calculated for as well.
The stars move, but it's only about a 15-degree drift per hour for most of the world. Just like... It was the same kind of philosophy of the ship captains back in the day. They would navigate by the stars as well, except they just wouldn't do it a day.
Yeah.
So it's the same sort of philosophy doing that, but just at a much more technologically advanced scale.
So yeah, I guess if you can take a navigation system from a rocket or a missile and put it into a 100-foot aircraft, you'd probably be able to do the math and be able to account for that.
Where Orion is. But the life support systems, here's some fun fact about them. Flying at 80,000 feet, which was their peak, meant that the crew could not use standard flight masks that you would find in fighter planes. They had to wear pressurized suits with helmets, much like that of the astronauts. And they actually had a system, if they ejected at Mach 3.2, an onboard computer would keep the suits pressurized during the descent, and the pilots would have immediately been subjected to temperatures of about 450 degrees Fahrenheit.
You could eject yourself from that plane?
Yeah. I'll tell you a story, actually. During the testing of the SR-71, 2 test pilots flew up. They're going Mach 3 something, and the plane started to disintegrate around them. And basically, when that happened, the entire Air Force Base kind of lost it, because it was just... you have to lose tracking of it for a little, and then the plane's gone, and they really had no faith in any of the pilots surviving, just because of the brutality of the crash. So one of the other SR-71 pilots that was at the base at the time took a cigar out of his friend's locker to smoke it for him because he thought he had died. Now, jump around, let's say, 30 miles away. A man strolls up to a nice little diner in a rocket suit and says, "Hey, can I place a collect call?" And he calls the Center of Crash Reports at the Air Force Base and hey, can you get General, Jones on the phone and come get him to pick me up? One of the pilots survived.
That is incredible.
And it's reported that other SR-71, the second pilot did not survive, but the SR-71 pilot that was at the Air Force Base that smoked the cigar did not ever return the cigar.
Are you kidding me? Dude, if I was still living after all of that, I would demand a lifetime supply of cigars from everybody there, and then some. I would come back, man, beating on my chest. That's awesome.
Yeah. So the life support systems weren't no joke. And during longer flights, pilots were provided food and drink. Water bottles were provided with long straws that had to be directed into the pilot's helmet using a mirror, and food was in toothpaste-like containers and fed through the hatch of a helmet. So this plane could track stars, but I had to drink water through a mirror.
And eat toothpaste food.
And eat toothpaste. I think I just wouldn't eat.
No, yeah.
I wouldn't eat.
I think I would just eat before going up. But then again,
I'd just have like a really big pack of gum.
Something, yeah. I mean, wow. How long were the flights typically? Do you know?
There was reports of they don't really have mission specs. What I was researching, but by the way, there are just tons of CIA declassified documents that are like 600 pages long that are super interesting to read. Like, I got the manual for the SR-71. It's downloaded on my computer. I've read a part of it, and I'm like, wow, they just give this stuff out now.
Yeah, I guess you can just... Are they still in commission?
No.
Okay.
They are retired. They've been retired since about 1990. They were retired twice. I forget when each time was, but flights would be typically around a few hours, depending on what the target was.
Okay.
But
yeah, I definitely would not eat.
Some more fun facts. The SR-71 spent about 20% of its mission time at Mach 3 and above, so it was very capable at this speed. When a missile was shot at the SR-71, the standard procedure was to slightly alter course and speed up. That's it. They didn't have flares.
So run, or I guess fly.
The thing is, they were slower than missiles, but the missile navigation systems weren't accurate enough to correct a distance or a turn and then a speed of a Mach 3, because you would have altered your course by miles by the time the missile had gotten to you.
Drastically, yeah.
So there was no real way. This is honestly one of the most successful planes to have ever been flown. They were never shot down. There was not a single one that was ever shot down.
Well, that's actually very impressive. I wonder what like the time or what like the specs would have to be for, say, like a missile to adjust.
We probably have missiles now that can get about there, but just at the time, it was unfathomable to think of. This was a marvel of engineering. At the retirement of the SR-71, it made a record-breaking flight from LA to DC, a flight of around 2,300 miles in 64 minutes and 20 seconds.
What?
Yeah.
Dude, they need to make those things They need to recommission those. I'm trying to get one of those.
That was its retirement flight. And it is now still at the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C.
Dang, I'm going to have to go check that out, actually.
Yeah, you should. I mean, dang, it's a heck of a plane.
Yeah, it is.
And I believe its fastest average speed was one course that flew from St. Louis to Cincinnati in around 311 miles in 8 minutes, 32 seconds.
Wait, I'm sorry. Repeat that?
The fastest average speed that is flown was a flight from St. Louis to Cincinnati in a flight of around 311 miles in 8 minutes and 32 seconds.
I was going to say light speed, but I'm sure it's obviously not light speed, but I wish I had those capabilities.
Yeah, I can run pretty fast around, like 40 miles an hour, but, that's a crazy amount. That's a crazy speed. But to finish off the story of the SR-71, the technological advancements created for the SR-71 and programs branching off from the original program could not be understated. The pilots controlling the beast of a machine truly lived at the edge of technology at the time and got to see the world at its best through the lenses of cameras meant to spy on enemies who wanted to kill each other. And got to see the best of the world through the cockpit windows showing off the curvature of the Earth and the emerging sunrise over the curve of the world. Truly, the SR-71 is not only a past marvel, but a modern one at that, and could be considered one of the greatest achievements in humanity so far. At least until the SR-72 begins testing.
There you go.
Skunkworks has announced the SR-72 has been in development.
Really?
Yes.
I wonder
the first flight will probably be around 2026.
Interesting.
And actually, fun fact about if anyone's watched Top Gun Maverick, there is a plane in there called the Dark Star, which was specially designed by Skunkworks as a kind of fake plane to reach Mach 10 plus, just for the storyline. But it was actually designed by real Skunkworks engineers to be film accurate.
Was it successfully?
It wasn't a real plane, but the design of the plane and the CGI model were completely accurate to what a plane that could reach that speed
would be.
Yes.
That'd be cool to see what that looks like.
Well, I mean, you can see it in the movie.
True.
It's a great movie.
Never even seen Top Gun. Sorry.
Top Gun is one of the greatest movies of all time, purely because it is so flamboyant in its execution. And it's wonderful for that. I love it. And then there was a whole part in another movie where Quentin Tarantino, the director of Django Unchained and Pulp Fiction, he was cameoing in another movie, and his entire cameo was just based around him talking about Top Gun and how it was a gay allegory about how Maverick was gay and was attracted to Iceman.
The more you know.
Which was it made you think.
Yeah.
And Tom Cruise has been fighting off those allegations ever since.
That is I feel like that's one of those subliminal kind of messages that you just want to kind of keep to yourself and let viewers kind of, figure it out and kind of make some talk amongst themselves about that. But to come out and just straight up say it.
Yeah, TMZ. Why do you say those things, huh? Here's some fun facts about some other stuff. If you are 16 or older, there's a 60% chance you've met the person you'll marry one day.
I've actually heard that before.
Yeah.
I wonder how true or how you can even...
Well, Nolan, will you marry me?
Let's get a little Top Gun in here.
It's getting a little Top Gun here. That's wonderful. The doctor in France who discovered that hand washing prevents disease in surgery was thrown into a mental asylum for his wild views on being a doctor.
For washing his hands?
Yeah.
About what time period was this?
Probably like the 1700s.
Okay. I can see that then.
1996, believe it or not.
Yeah. Actually, that was about 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. I met him.
That's my uncle.
He was in a straitjacket.
Yeah.
According to scientists, men who grow beards easily at young ages will most likely be bald. So, Nolan, we've got a sad existence of hats in front of us.
I was very, excited for that. I thought you were going to say something, fantastic.
No.
Like, they're going to grow up to be super rich.
No, I had a beard at 17.
Yeah. I started, I guess, around sometime in high school, too. That's not a great... It's pretty disappointing.
That's not a fun fact, Thomas.
Yeah.
I'm never coming on again.
Yeah, no, I'm disappointed.
Octopus...
I'm going to defy the odds. We're both going to defy the odds.
I'll give you my leftover hair, just so one of us isn't bald.
Yeah. I'll start collecting my hair clippings now.
I need them. You can have some of my eyebrows, too. Octopuses have copper-based blood, so it's blue instead of red, like with our iron-based blood.
I wonder how that comes about. Octopus are some interesting creatures.
They are. They are.
You big fan of Shark Week?
I am.
Dude, I love Shark Week.
I just like the crazy guys. I like the crazy guys who see one little fin and they're like, "It's a megalodon! I saw him! I saw him!"
They too
and then they write a 400-page book about their experience.
Of a 30-second experience.
And then the first 200 pages is just about how his
awesome
father was never proud of him.
Yeah. It's okay. About the sharks now.
One question I have to say, or the one question I have about the sharks that I've been chasing this whole week was, why didn't my dad ever chase this hard after me after I left?
Seriously, what are you, chasing sharks or chasing answers there, buddy?
It's just you have to go through 17 pages before you get to the sharks.
Yeah. And also, have you ever noticed how, they somehow will know? They'll have the name of the shark. They'll name it, Lucy or something.
It's always
oh my
Bruce.
God, that's Lucy. Yeah.
It's always Bruce. No,
Bruce,
how many
1,200
sharks
miles away, and it's how do you know?
Oh, they have trackers.
Oh, I get that, but if you're just a visual sight, I guess some markings and scars and such, but
yeah,
I feel like there's a lot of overproduction and such that goes into that.
Yeah,
it's Shark Week, baby.
Discovery Channel. They put aliens as history, man.
Hey, they're history.
They are history.
Well, actually, they're not history. They still roam the Earth.
Oh,
in the intergalactic world.
Just
kidding. I don't want to get into alien side.
I just like to think that aliens are the only ones working at the DMV. Not to be productive or anything. It's just no one else really wants to do that job for the humans. We better throw some down there.
Yeah. How do you even get involved in that? No one wants to go to the DMV. Maybe once every few years, you would as a customer, I guess, would have to go to the DMV.
Do you think they have an interview process, or do they just give them a form?
I'm sure
it's just
if you submit an application, it's pretty much immediate. And even if they do hire, they probably, are you sure you want to do this? Do you realize what you're putting yourself through here?
I want to know what their average pay is like.
I think it's got to be pretty good. Probably get good benefits and such as well.
A person with brain damage to the right side of their brain may have the capacity to develop a joke addiction or a compulsive need to make and tell jokes. Now that makes sense because I got hit in the head with a bat. No, I'm kidding. This is probably just
that.
This is yeah. Thomas, your face is shaped like the crescent moon of October.
Is that what that baseball-sized knot on the right side of your head is about?
No, that's different entirely.
Oh, okay.
School buses are yellow, and because they're easier to see than any other color to the human eye. I don't remember. I don't know if that's true because I always heard that green was the best color to see for the eye because our eyes recognize it the best. We see the biggest spectrum of green than any other color.
I wonder if there's any sort of color blindness that has to go into that. Because isn't red-green colorblind one of the most predominant?
Yes.
But either way, you'd still be able to make out the tone.
It's just certain shades of gray that really look green to those people. Because I know this because I was working with a guy. We were filling up trucks with fuel at our storage lot, and the truck had a gray cap, but green is the color that you use to differentiate between diesel and gasoline fuels. Mm-hmm. So the guy comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, am I supposed to fill this thing up with diesel?" I'm like, "No, I can clearly see that it's a gasoline." And I go over to the thing, and he's like, "Yeah, it's green." And I'm like, "It's gray." And he goes, "Oh." And I said, "Are you red-green colorblind?" And he says, "I think so." I'm like, "We just hired you, dude."
Seriously, like, you think that'd be on the application?
Yeah.
How do you not know that either? Like, how do you go your entire life?
I mean, it's just like you can't tell. That's the thing.
True, but you think you'd at least come across a circumstance like that prior to...
I'm sure it comes across many times, but...
Yeah, one of my good friends, Bert, is colorblind.
Oh, really?
Shout out to Bert.
Shout out, Bert. And I asked a police officer why cop cars are black and white, and he told me, step out of the car, you're going to federal prison for 11 cases of arson. So, jury's out on that one. I don't know why cop cars are black and white. So, sorry, audience. Blimps, when filled up with fuel, weigh about 100 to 200 pounds.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, because isn't it just like a skeleton structure almost, and then just air?
When they're not filled up with fuel, they weigh about 10 tons.
Really?
Yeah.
What is the, how do they operate? What is the fuel?
Gas.
Interesting.
It's not like heated air. The blimps are filled up with helium. And then the propellers are filled up with gas.
Yeah.
So they get to do that. But I was just thinking, you could get a bunch of friends together and you could pick up a blimp and take it.
Just run off with a blimp.
It's 100 pounds. It's not that much.
Let's go get the Goodyear blimp.
Oh, God. There's only 11. There's only 8 left. Another last fun fact. The average amount of legs on a person is not 2.
What is it?
It's less than 2.
Really?
Well, because that's just how averages work. As soon as you got a guy with one leg, it's
I guess there's
1.99999.
very many 3-legged people.
Yeah.
Except for me. I might be one, but...
So we're closing up on our time now. Is there anything you wanted to have a quick discussion about?
No, I mean, I guess I got something that kind of relates back to your first question about my hometown and kind of similar to the whole blimp thing. Did you know Kent Island has a hot air balloon festival?
Do they?
Yeah. And I just learned about it this year, but apparently it's this was the 22nd annual or something like that. Yeah, and I've never heard of it before. Wow. But you would think in such a small town I would know that there is hot air balloon festival.
That would be a great event to have during COVID because everyone's 6 feet apart already.
Exactly. But yeah, so...
unless you've got someone coughing up above everyone else.
True.
That's just super spreader.
Then you're getting in there.
That's a super spreader. That's worse than buses. That's worse than public transportation. There's public transportation for the germs.
Seriously. Plus, but hey, I don't know. Maybe the heat would kill it.
There's a festival in Albuquerque that does the same thing, but it's huge.
Really? Yeah, I don't think
it's gigantic.
Huh.
There's apparently people go to it every year and they're like, oh, there's my favorite one, the one that's shaped like a pig. There's one shaped like a pig. It's pretty cool.
How do you get it? That we had this conversation. This is during my internship at Job Tank when I discovered it, and we're talking how do you get into that? How do you get into being a hot air balloon operator? Is it like a hobby?
I think it's one of those hobbies that you kind of have to center your life around.
Yeah, like the Falcon.
The Falcon, right? Yeah. From last episode, yes. We're closing up on our time here. I just want to say thank you again for listening. I'll be back on again next week, 12 sharp noon on 96.3 WXSU LP Salisbury. Once again, I just want to say thanks for listening, and thank you for coming on, Nolan.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. It was a blast. I have to come back soon.
All right, yeah,
if you let me.
Yeah, I will do. All right, tune into the extravaganza. All right, thanks, guys.